Hi there, I'm Ken Lammers. Welcome to Minor League Matters, and this is the weekly report on soccer in the United States. And let's start out by talking about the Lamar Hunt U.S. Open Cup, or whatever the official name of it is, the U.S. Open Cup. And for those of you who don't know what this is, every year, and we've picked this up from the way they do it, and probably picked it up from Great Britain, but I assume it's done in most countries over in Europe. But what it is all the teams, all the soccer teams in the United States play off to see who ends up to be at the top of the heap. So the first part of it is you get things like the National Premier Soccer League or the Development League. The low-level teams play all against each other and eliminate each other. And then you get to the point where, well, the third-tier teams should come in since there is no third-tier league right now. That's not happening. But the second-tier teams come in, and then there's a little bit of play, and then they go and they play the Major League Soccer teams, the top dogs in the country. And it's always interesting in the United States once you get there because the Major League Soccer teams um, don't have that much superiority against USL, the second tier. And so you end up with things that happened like last year where Cincinnati made a fairly deep run. And because they made a fairly deep run, they made themselves, right? They were, going to be an okay USL team, and they just became the toast of the town, the toast of the U.S. as far as soccer. I mean, they weren't the greatest story last year, but they were one of the top two or three, and wouldn't have been, would have been probably number one if it wasn't for the fact that Atlanta United just boomed, right? But okay, so that's going on this year, and this year they've gone through all the lower players, and finally the MLS, teams come into play, and the USL has done pretty doggone good against these MLS teams, right? In general, the MLS teams tended to win, and some of the times they were playing against each other. So, of course, an MLS team wins there. But there were four contests which were really interesting, and turned out USL was able to go toe to toe with them. Of those four, the USL won three and lost one in a penalty kickoff. And that one was Cincinnati. Cincinnati was playing Minnesota United. Minnesota United is fairly mediocre second season MLS team, and I like Minnesota, but let's be honest here. I mean, they're not at the top of their division, so and Cincinnati is at least technically ranked number one in the East in the USL, and they're going to the MLS next year, and so they came in and it turned into a slugfest. 0-0 at the end of regular play, 0-0 at the end of overtime play, sudden death overtime play, and then they go to the shootout. And let's be honest, folks. I mean, I watched it, and probably a lot of y'all have too. And in the shootout, they got beat pretty badly. But they went toe to toe up to that moment, and it was fairly impressive. So that's what Cincinnati, FC Cincinnati did. But there were also other teams that did pretty doggone well and ended up winning. The next, I guess, the next one to talk about would be the Sacramento Republic played the Seattle Sounders, and the Sacramento Republic at the end of, I think at the end of regulation play, they were tied 1-1, and Sacramento won in overtime, in sudden death overtime. It's pretty impressive. Sacramento even scored first, so they did well for themselves. They're, I think, third in the West in USL. Okay, moving on from them, you get, Nashville beat Colorado 2-0. So that was a pretty solid win. Nashville, of course, is temporarily in the USL before it, moves off to be in the MLS. And we see how well a team in Nashville can do. That should be an interesting experiment to see what goes on there. And then finally, the best team in the USL, Louisville, Lou City, went in and played I think the Revolution, which was New England, which I think is ranked fourth in the East, and it was a really fun game to watch. New England scores, Louisville comes back and scores. And New England scores, Louisville comes back and scores, and then Louisville scores the winner before the end of regulation. So it was a good match. Yeah, I mean Louisville is. I guess Louisville's ranked. Well, I know Louisville's ranked number 2 in the East right now, but it's 1 point back, and it's played I think 2 or 3 less games than FC Cincinnati. So reality is when it's played its games, it will uh, probably be ahead of Cincinnati unless something just goes disastrously wrong, and that hasn't been going on for Louisville for the last couple of years. So we've talked about the Cup. There will be a next round. It'd be interesting to see what Sacramento, Louisville, and Nashville do in the next round. I'd like to see one of them make a deep run. I think the one that's most likely to do it is Louisville, maybe Nashville. Although Sacramento can get fired up and play pretty well, we'll see how it all turns out. Now, having discussed the Cup, let's talk about where everybody stands right now. In the USL in the East, Cincinnati is on top and has a winning record still with 7 wins and 5 non-wins, right? Lou City is second with 7 wins and 3 non-wins. So they've played 2 games less than Cincinnati has. Pittsburgh Riverhounds are third, but they're upside down. They do not have a winning record. They are 5 and 7 non-wins. Okay, and then Charlotte Independence is in 4th place, and they've got 6 wins and 5 non-wins. And that's all in the East. That's all the teams still with winning records. In the West, the teams with winning records are the Real Monarchs, which are 10 and 3, which is pretty doggone impressive, which means they're running the board pretty well in the West. Right, and behind them is Phoenix Rising. Phoenix Rising has 7 wins and 3 non-wins. Sacramento Republic with 7 wins and 6 non-wins, and the win in the Cup. So they're doing pretty well. And then Portland Timbers has got 7 wins, 6 non-wins. So that's what's going on in the USL, where everybody stands there. The MLS is ongoing, of course. And in the MLS in the East, Atlanta United is out front with 9 wins and 5 non-wins. New York NYFC it's got 8 wins and 6 non-wins. The Crew are upside down. They've got 7 wins and 8 non-wins in 3rd place. Still out there fighting to see if they'll stay. It'll be an interesting story at the end of the year. Red Bull, New York Red Bulls are 7 wins and 5 non-wins. Okay, so that's in the East. That's all the teams that remain with winning records. In the West, only 2 teams have winning records. Sporting Kansas City is at 8 wins and 6 non-wins. And FC Dallas is at 7 wins and 6 non-wins, and they're the top 2 in their division. So that pretty much is a rundown of what's going on in soccer in the United States today. And I'm going to leave it there. If you like what you see here today, hit like. If you like what you see around here generally, other posts, etc., hit subscribe. And beyond that, if you want to contact me, I'm at Twitter at @LammersK, at LA2MsERSK. And having said that, leave comments. Yeah, let me say about that too. Leave comments below about what you like and dislike. I can't promise I will reply to them because I have to work the day job. But, if I get some spare time, I might do it. And beyond that, I'm going to say what I always say. If you got a little bit of spare money, and you got a little bit of spare time, go watch some minor league sports. Y'all have a good week now.